I decided to wear a skimpy dress and go to a party for men and let loose, but then, have you ever been in a situation where you want to let loose, but you end up letting loose in the wrong places and with wrong people? I so regret the day I went to the men's party because I wanted to let loose because it destroyed the only good thing that I had with my fiancé. I would never forget his face when I came back, and the things he did made me regret ever going to that party. The alcohol that you were drinking suddenly gets out of the system right away. Have you ever had one of those nights where you just want to have some fun and let loose? Well, that's exactly what happened to me recently. I made the decision to go to a party that was specifically for men, thinking it would be a great way to have a good time and meet new people. Till this very moment, I am still in denial and can't seem to get over the fact that I had lost my fiancé because I had decided to be stupid and did something that had put my relationship in jeopardy. There is no one to blame but myself. I did all of that, and to tell the truth, I regret it, and I still want my fiancé back. I would even trade anything just to get him back to me. My fiancé, Thomas Morris, male 34, and I, female 32, met at a football match that I had gone to watch in Florida Tech Panther Stadium a few years ago. He was sitting next to me, and since I was alone, he was also alone. We ended up chatting, talking about football and general stuff. Since then, we got along. We had a lot of fun while watching the match. Another thing that made it so much fun was that we were supporting different teams, and mine won, by the way. He would complain about the cheating referee, saying he was favoring my team. Thomas was just a ball of fun and happiness. He was able to make me forget about my miserable life that I had at home for once. I'm not a person who is good at socializing, but with Thomas it was just easy. The conversations were flowing so smoothly, and I was having a lot of fun. We exchanged numbers during the game, and from there onwards we became inseparable friends. One thing about Thomas is that he is overprotective, and when he loves for real. He's a great guy. He's sweet, kind, and humble, but do him wrong. It would be like you had caused a commotion in hell. That guy can hold grudges, and when he avenges himself, it doesn't get really nice. You would even regret ever stepping on his foot. I had learned that when some guy, I think they knew each other from way back. That guy called him names and reminded him of the past that he had told me that he wanted to forget about. The things he did to the guy were scary. He was really heartless at that time, and for me to witness it made me kind of scared of Thomas. You know, when you witness some scary and heartless **** for the first time, you get traumatized for days or even weeks. That was me. After what Thomas did to that guy, I was traumatized and didn't want to see Thomas for a couple of days. My friendship with Thomas went on for like 7, if not 8 months, until he confessed his true feelings for me. I had seen his actions and the way he was acting when with me that he was no longer treating me as a friend. I was relieved when he eventually decided to break the confusion and confessed. At first, I was surprised I wouldn't lie. I mean, the guy is handsome and all. So I had thought that our relationship will only be a friendship. I didn't see myself as his type of girl that he would date or even propose to marry. So Thomas and I didn't date for too long. It took him like 5 or 6 months to propose. And the day he proposed, I couldn't believe it, you know. With my history of non-lasting relationships, I had really thought I had bad luck when it came to relationships because they never lasted even 6 months at least. And all the men that I had dated would break up with me for one reason. I do not meet their standards and satisfactions. I couldn't believe it. I had thought I was the one with the problem, but I wasn't. My relationship with Thomas was everything and more. It was truly a bliss, and I felt so secured and loved in him. He was my first true and genuine man that I had fallen in love with. Yes, I had my doubts about our relationship, and I had thought that maybe it wouldn't last just like my previous relationships, but it surprised me when we had lasted for years. From there, I knew that I wasn't the problem. The guys that I was dating before Thomas really ate up my self-esteem. I started looking down on myself, thinking that I would never be good enough for any man, only for God to turn the tables and give me Thomas, the best man that I had ever dated, and the man who truly loved me for me, and not for what I had to offer. Thomas loved me for who I really am. We had a deep connection and chemistry that no one would actually think of. Sometimes we would act like we were siblings, and sometimes like lovers or best friends. Thomas was my go-to guy whenever I had a problem. He knew how to make me feel better when I would sometimes feel under the weather. He knew me from inside and outside. He knew me when I was happy or sad. And I had ruined all that just because of lust and desires. How could I ruin such a good thing that was going on between Thomas and I? It was really selfish of me. But one thing I would never forget is the revenge or the actions that he took when I came back from the men's party. It was something that I had never expected, and it still haunts me till today. Thomas and I would go to parties and visit new clubs or pubs. It was really a great experience to get to explore places with your partner. The relationship that I had with Thomas really meant a lot to me, and I truly regret ever going to that party, because it made me lose the only thing that mattered to me, and the only person close to my heart. I just wanted to have some fun, but I guess the fun had me instead. How could I be so stupid and careless? A few years later, our relationship was under the rock. We would argue most of the time and sometimes end up going to bed angry at each other. Mind you, we had talked about going to bed angry at each other. We had agreed that no one would go to bed angry or sad because of another person. We agreed to communicate about things that we don't like and the things that make us angry to avoid going to bed with a heavy heart. A lot was happening in our relationship to a point that I would somehow feel like I was going back to my past life, whereby I was drinking a lot, partying a lot, and had flings here and there with men. I had no control over myself, and that had started when I lost my father in a shooting that had taken place between some gangsters in the police department. My father was a cop, so he actually passed on while on duty. I was shattered when I heard about his passing, and I somehow lost myself. Another thing, Thomas was not always available since he was an event coordinator. His job demanded his most attention and time, so that kind of affected me because his events would take most of his time to a point that he wouldn't have time for me. His attention was something that I would only look at our pictures and remind myself of our old happy and less busy days. Thomas would go maybe to another city or to another country to host an event, and he would go for days, if not weeks or months. His traveling made things really hard for us, especially for me, because even our intimate moments were no longer the same. I loved Thomas a lot, and heck, I still love the guy. The relationship really meant a lot to me. It was so special. So one day when Thomas was outside the country with work, I was left in the house all alone, bored. Since I had no friends or close relatives, the house was truly boring and lonely. Thomas was the only friend I had, and he was also my best friend. I tried staying indoors the first 2 days that Thomas went on, but I couldn't stay in any more longer. So I decided to go and get some fresh air. As I was still sitting in one of the restaurants, I was approached by my long-lost gay friend. Chris, gay friend, male, 31, was actually my best friend in high school, but we lost contact when he moved to Spain for school. I was so happy to see my friend after a long time of not seeing him and not knowing how to reach out to him. I didn't regret getting out of the house that day because it made me reunite with my friend. I know that if Thomas was to learn that I had a gay friend, he would flip because in his head he believes that there's no such thing as gay, because we would be getting along with men who pretend to be women. We once had a talk about gays when we were watching some movie that had gays, and he asked a very awkward and weird question about the LGBTQ plus genders. He asked why gays or transgender don't date lesbians because gays or transgender pretend to be women, while lesbians pretend to be men. To tell the truth, I didn't know how to answer his question because I would also ask myself the same question sometimes and wouldn't get any answer. I just told him that we should actually ask someone who is a transgender or a lesbian that question because it was kind of confusing. I also wanted to know answers to that question because it was really intriguing. So Chris invited me to this party that was going to be at one of his friends' houses in Pinecrest, Florida. Since I was bored and had nothing to do in the house, I told him that I would come to the party. Later on, he sent the coordinates to the party, and I was super excited to be getting a chance to spend with my friend again. I didn't care about whose party it was or who would be on B on that party. I just wanted to have a good time with my long-lost best friend. I had made it look breathtaking and fit for the party because Chris didn't tell me the theme, so I made one myself. Mind you, that day I didn't speak with Thomas the whole day. I didn't even know when he would be coming back. If I knew that he would be home that day, I would have rejected Chris's invitation and made sure that Thomas finds me home. The only thing that was on my mind that day was partying and letting loose. I prepared for the night, and then later I went to the sent coordinates. When I got there, I just couldn't believe it. It was actually a party for men. I wish that Chris would have given me the memo at least just to know what I would be expecting, but I was glad that my outfit was fitting very well. Chris introduced me to the guys, and I would say that they were all good people, chilled and had a vibe that I needed. The party was going well, and the host was looking super handsome. You wouldn't see that he was gay. He was just like every handsome and yummy guy. The party went on. I was drinking like a fish. Not because I had problems or anything, but I just wanted to have some fun and let loose. Plus, I wanted to enjoy my time with my best friend. I had switched off my phone the minute I got into the gate. I had left home with the intention to have fun and be myself for once. I was starting to feel like I was a relative of the house furniture when I was always in the house. The party was in full swing when I arrived. There were laughs, music, and good vibes all around. I was enjoying myself. mingling with new people and forgetting about the stress of everyday life. It felt liberating to be in the moment and embrace the carefree atmosphere. I was having so much fun and the drinks were flowing. No one was asking anyone any questions. No one cared about you or what you do. The only thing that brought us together was the party and letting loose. As the night went on, I may have gotten carried away with the excitement. I let loose and had a few too many drinks. Time seemed to fly by, and before I knew it, it was time to head home. Mind you, the time was almost after 3 in the a.m.s, meaning I had lost track of time to get home, but I didn't care because I thought that there was no one at the house. At about 4 a.m., I decided to go home. I told Chris that I was going, of which I don't think he had heard me because he was sloshed. I left and tried to drive back home. I hoped that I wouldn't find Thomas because if he saw that I was driving while in the influence of alcohol, he would get mad, and I would get in deep trouble. Little did I know that the universe and God was not actually on my side that day. When I arrived at my doorstep, I was trying to unlock the door, but I was failing dismally because of the state that I was in. The door eventually unlocked. I thought I was the one who unlocked it. But when I opened the door, I was greeted by a surprising sight. He was standing there, waiting for me. I couldn't believe my eyes. How did he know I would be coming back at this exact moment? I got medium sober at the very same moment. I didn't know that he was coming back home, and the worst part was that I didn't even bother to check my phone. I was just excited to be going to the party and getting a chance to get out of the house. I tried acting strong and looking less intoxicated, but I failed. My walking steps were evidence that I was really intoxicated. His expression was a mix of concern, anger, and disappointment. It was clear that he had been worried about me, but he was angry and disappointed in me. I felt a pang of guilt for not considering how my actions might affect him. I tried explaining to him, but he didn't want to hear anything. Instead, he left me at the kitchen doorstep and went to bed. I knew then that I was in deep trouble, and there was nothing I would say nor do that would convince him otherwise. He was angry at me. I ended up falling asleep on the couch, and I was woken by his enraged face in the morning. You know when you were highly sloshed the previous night and you wake up with a great hangover the following day? That was me. I looked at Thomas with apologizing eyes, hoping that maybe he would calm down, but it seemed like I was pouring paraffin in an already blazing flames. He asked where I was coming from, intoxicated and at midnight. I tried lying to him and told him that I was at a friend's party. I just couldn't mention that I had gone to a party that was full of men. I had thought lying to him was going to make him move on from the situation. But little did I know that the man that I was in a relationship with actually had a video of the party. He asked if we had started lying in our relationship. I was confused by his question. I tried to convince him and told him the same lie that I had already told him. But the man of the house did the unthinkable. He threw his phone at me and told me to watch the video. What I saw almost made my heart stop. I tried explaining to him and apologizing, but instead the guy just gave the greatest slap of them all. I couldn't believe it, you know. I was so shocked and my mind and whole body just froze. He literally told me that he had thought I was different, but I was worse than his previous girlfriends. He was so angry to a point that he even called me names and said that I had gone to that party to get those men's attention, and that was why I was wearing a skimpy and revealing outfit. I felt so disrespected by Thomas, but because I knew that I was the one at fault, I decided not to pay attention to it, and humbled myself and apologized for my behavior. I told him that I didn't know that he was coming back on that day, and I had wanted to get some fresh air because I was tired of always being cooped up in the house. We argued a lot to the point that he told me that if I had used my thick skull, I would have known that he was coming back because he had called me so many times, but I was unreachable. He told me that I had disappointed him, and he would make sure that I regret ever going out of the house and went to that party because he was going to make me feel the pain that he was also feeling. I wondered what he would do because it's not like I had cheated on him or something. Or maybe I did, because on the video it showed me kissing with some guy that I don't even remember while another was holding me on my waist and spanking my ass. But is that even cheating? Another thing I don't even remember doing until Thomas showed me the video. It was so embarrassing and humiliating, I had wished for the ground to open up and swallow me at that moment. After our heated argument, he told me to pack my bags and move out of his house. I was so shocked by his sudden decision. I begged him while crying, kicking and apologizing, but he was hearing none of it. He even insisted to help me pack and told me that he won't be in a relationship and even live with a cheap person who goes around allowing other men to spank her and kiss her and say she was drunk. I just couldn't believe Thomas. I tried talking to him in a civilized manner, but he didn't want to hear it. He wanted me gone. I went to our bedroom and packed my clothes. I told him that I was going because I wanted him to calm down and talk about the issue in a civilized and mature manner. Instead of answering me, he just looked at me like I was the most disgusting thing that he had seen. That really broke my heart. I went back home with a heavy heart. I just couldn't believe that the only man who had shown me genuine love had given up on me and dumped me like a used toilet paper. It was really a rough time for me because weeks passed and I had heard nothing from Thomas. I even tried calling him hoping that he would answer, but it seemed like he had blocked my number. During those weeks, I had decided to log on to my social media platform, and maybe I would find him online so I can speak to him. But to my surprise, I was met by the same video from the party, and there was a caption that said, "Sometimes we fall in love with people thinking they are the one, only for us to find out after years of being together that the person you love is actually a snake in a sheep's skin. After this, I'm never going to forgive her, and I don't think I would ever be in any relationship again." That caption took the last straw of being patient and hoping that my man would somehow get back to me. It drove me straight to depression. I had not only broken my relationship, but I had also broken the heart of the man that loved me and has been there for me when no one was. The only man who knew me when I was down, happy, or stressed. I had jeopardized that, and it got destroyed because of my stupidity. 2 months later, my mother called our church pastor to pray for me, then got me a virtual therapist because I didn't want to face the world. I had my therapy sessions while at home. Yes, my mother was very disappointed at me when she heard that I had gone to a men's party and not intentionally cheated on my fiancé. She got angry at me and gave me a silent treatment for a week. My breakup with Thomas really shattered me, and to top it up, the video that he had posted on his timeline and the caption almost drove me to an early grave. I didn't know the damage that I had done to Thomas's heart until I read that caption. He hated me. Well, I think he still hates me. 1 month later, I had started to heal. I knew that somehow I had to move on and try to live with the fact that what happened had happened, and there was nothing I would do to change it. My mother convinced me to start focusing more on my catering business that I had abandoned for years. My mother was the one taking care of my business, and I am so grateful to her. My relationship with Thomas made me forget some of the things that were putting food on the table. From that day forward, I learned the value of balance and considering the impact of my actions on others. While it's important to let loose and have fun, it's equally important to be responsible and mindful of those who care about us. I'm still on the healing journey, even though it's really hard having to get my heart to move on from Thomas. How do I deal with this?
I wanted to try another man since I've only been with him ever. He exploded in anger and filed divorce. Have you ever felt curious about what else is out there? I certainly did. You see, I had only been with one man my entire life, and I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to experience something different. So I decided to take a leap of faith and explore my options. Felt curious about what it would be like to be with someone else, to experience a different kind of connection. That's exactly how I felt. I had been in a long-term relationship with the same person for years, and while it was but when I finally mustered up the courage to express my desires to my partner, things took an unexpected turn. He exploded in anger, unable to understand my curiosity and need for exploration. Instead of having an open conversation, he immediately filed for divorces comfortably and familiarly. I couldn't help but wonder what else was out there. My husband, Taylor Thompson, male 31, and I, female 29, at one of the children's homes in Ohio. Well, I was volunteering to care for infants that were in the shelter. I love children, so that's why I decided to spend my day with them that day. Taylor came in and I was introduced to him as a sponsor of the children's home. He was actually doing a very nice job. I respect people who think of others and try to go an extra mile to help the ones who are in need. Taylor and I spent the day at the children's home until it was time for me to go. Mind you, I had requested an Uber ride the time I was going to the children's home since my car was away for a service. Taylor offered to give me a lift, and I couldn't refuse because I was saving money. I was grateful for his kind gesture and gentleness. He took me to my apartment and told me that we would see each other the following week. Yes, I had promised the home that I would visit them again the following weekend. I enjoyed my stay with the children. We met the following week, of which was when we exchanged numbers. Well, he asked for my number so he can call me whenever he went to the home shelter. Since then, we communicated through phone and social media, specifically on WhatsApp. I couldn't stop thinking about him from the day he asked for my number. I mean, the guy was handsome, kind, humble, funny, and very resolute. I respect men like him because they always go an extra mile to love, care, and protect the ones who cannot defend themselves. He was the voice of the voiceless. Since then, we became friends. There's a lot that we had in common. Our goals and objectives clicked, you know? The energies and personalities clicked. Sometimes I would go to the home shelter hoping to see him, but sometimes I wouldn't see him, which was a bummer to me because I had hoped that he would show up. When I would ask him why he never came to the home shelter, he told me that he was busy at work, but promised to visit the following weekend. A few months later, he asked to take me out on a date. He was so blunt and straightforward, and that added to the boxes that I was ticking about him. We went on that date, and it was truly amazing. One thing about Taylor was that he had a great sense of humor. He knew how to show his true emotions, and he would communicate with what was bothering him or made him happy. He shared everything. I even doubted that the guy actually had secrets because of the way he was open. We started dating 3 months into our friendship, and it was truly a bliss. He would spoil me even if I didn't need anything. He would just randomly tell me to wear something nice, and we would go out. I was the happiest woman on earth. I was treated like a queen, and I didn't know how it felt to be loved and treated like a queen before I met Taylor. I would say that Taylor was my first love and first everything. He taught me a lot about relationships, and I would Google some of the things that I couldn't ask him about dating and relationships. I learned a lot about it, and I was glad that I had a man who took it upon himself to help me gain more knowledge about men and relationships. I think 6 months, if not 7 to 9 months later, he proposed, and I immediately accepted his proposal. I said yes to the love of my life. 3 months later, we got married. It wasn't something big, just a few of his friends, colleagues, and our families. We had also invited a few of the staff members in the children's shelter. Taylor and I didn't stop visiting the children, and it would equal sign ways be the funniest thing I had ever done and experienced. The fact that Taylor respected the relationship rules of honesty and respect. Our relationship started changing when we were in our 3 years of marriage. I suddenly got the urge to try something new. I felt the need to explore new things and new people. Not that I was tired of Taylor and our intimate moments. The truth is, I enjoyed being intimate with my husband. I just wanted to try another man, just to see how it felt like to move from one man to another. I wanted to explore new intimate styles and positions, you know? I wanted to open up to my husband about my sudden desire and why I wanted to explore new things. I just didn't know how to, and it was somehow frustrating me because I didn't know what his reaction would be. My desire wasn't purposely supposed to hurt anyone, as I was just going to try another man and see how it was to have 2 men in my life. I know it was really selfish and dumb of me. But you can't ignore the desire that was rapidly growing, and I would sometimes see my husband as a person who was blocking me to get exploration. The fact that I was desiring another man while I was married was somehow scaring me, but I knew that I had to talk to my husband Taylor about it. I needed his wise words on my problem. Another thing, I didn't know any other man, sexually, besides my husband. Taylor was my first everything. I was not a dating person or whatsoever, but I did have male friends. Yes, some have tried to have a thing with me, but I realized that all they wanted was what was in between my legs. Taylor became the very first person I had fallen in love with, and gave him my all on a silver platter. For many years, I had only been in a committed relationship with one person. While I cherished the love and connection we shared, I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to explore other relationships and experiences. It was a natural curiosity that many people can relate to. I approached the topic with my partner, hoping for understanding and open-mindedness. It all started with a simple conversation. I mustered up the courage to express my desire to try being with another man. I thought my partner would understand that we could navigate this new territory together. Unfortunately, instead of an open-minded response, I was met with anger and resentment. Unfortunately, he didn't react the way I had hoped. Instead of having a calm and rational conversation, he exploded in anger. His reaction took me by surprise, and it quickly became clear that he wasn't willing to entertain the idea of me being with someone else. My partner's reaction caught me off guard. I never expected such a strong negative response. We had always prided ourselves on open communication, but this topic seemed to strike a nerve. Over the next few days, tension grew between us. He became distant and cold, and it seemed like every conversation ended in an argument. We both knew that something had changed, and it was tearing us apart. I had tried to come into terms with my wrong, and tried to apologize for how I had approached the situation. But I didn't know what to say and where to start apologizing, because what I felt the other day was what I was still feeling. I realized that my approach may not have been the best. Instead of having an open and honest conversation, I should have taken more time to understand my partner's feelings and concerns. Perhaps there were underlying issues that I had failed to address, which was why I had decided to think of another approach that he would understand. I didn't need him to do anything. I just wanted his thoughts and advice. Few days later, I waited for my husband to cool down so I could approach the topic again. I had to wait a couple of days before I angered him again. I didn't want to take things in my own hands and go outside to get what I had desired, because that would be cheating. I loved my husband, heck. I even still love him so much. We had vowed to ourselves to always be open with one another. We believed that strong communication skills were a key to a successful marriage. Oh, and not to forget loyalty, respect, and commitment. During the day as he was at work, I got the time to prepare some romantic dinner for the two of us. I wanted to soothe his heart first before dropping the same bomb that had angered him before. Later on, he came back and I was nervous. I didn't know how he was going to take my thoughts or desires again, but I hoped for the best. I prepared him water to bathe and prepared supper. I wanted everything to be perfect, you know. So when he came back from taking a bath, we had a light conversation. I knew that he had forgiven me for the first encounter when I dropped the bomb, but I had to do it again, unfortunately. So I started the conversation with the apology of how I had approached my desires situation and how much I wanted us to speak about it without arguing or fighting. The more he looked at me, showing that he was listening, the more my armpits were sweating because of the nerves. My husband was a great husband and a partner to me. I didn't doubt his love for me because it was a sure case that he loved me so much. But I felt like I was lonely, I was bored. Taylor didn't give me enough time that I needed, and even our intimate moments were good, but they lasted a short period of time. My friends who were not married looked so happy in their single life era. They slept with whoever they felt like sleeping with, or if they were desiring something different, they would go for it without any hassle like me. I didn't regret marrying Taylor. I mean, if I didn't want to get married to him, I would have rejected his proposal or asked him to wait a bit before we got married. When I agreed to be his wife, I knew what I was putting myself into, and it was a lifetime commitment. But on another thought, I felt like I had got married way too early and I was still young. I didn't give myself any chance to live, be myself, and be like my friends, living a carefree life. I didn't give myself to be young and do young people things, but I rushed to get married. Now I found myself being stuck with so many desires that my husband couldn't deliver. So I told him everything that I was feeling. From the fact that he was no longer giving me time like he used to. He was always focused at work and on the children's home shelter. Getting his full attention was something that I would only dream about, and it stayed there in my dreams. I opened up to him about my feelings and the fact that I was craving to try another man. After I had said that his eyes changed from being clear to pure red, he looked enraged. He exploded in anger. He couldn't believe what he was hearing and accused me of betraying him. He asked if that was what I had wanted, and I agreed. To him, he thought I wanted to cheat on him on purpose, but I wouldn't call it cheating. I would call it exploring. I had expected him to be upset, but I never anticipated the level of anger he displayed. It was clear that he saw my desire to explore as a threat to our relationship. He got pretty angry to the point that I felt my cheek burning, only to find out that he had just slapped me. I couldn't blame him, even though a lot of people wanted me to divorce him because he had laid his hand on me. My husband thought I wanted to cheat on him, but what I wanted to do, was it considered cheating? But I don't think so. I thought it was just me wanting to explore my desires, not to cheat on my husband. We ended up having a very heated argument. I thought he was unfair because he had his fair share of changing women before we got into a relationship and eventually got married. I also wanted to feel how it was like to have another man exploring your body. Sure, I love my husband. He also loves me. Heck, we were head over heels with each other. But he was not delivering what I needed and wanted. He was always busy for me. You know, sometimes love alone is not enough. It doesn't give you what you want, but it connects the feelings between you and your partner or the person you admire. The anger escalated, and before I knew it, he moved out of the house. He told me that he can't be in the same building as me because if he was to spend another minute with me, he would do something that would land him in jail, and he can't live in jail with regrets. He valued his life so much. Not knowing that he was moving out was actually the last straw of our relationship. It was the end of our marriage. Eventually, he made the decision to file for divorce. It was a painful realization that our relationship couldn't survive this hurdle. The thought of losing him was devastating, but I also knew that I couldn't suppress my desires for the rest of my life. He had filed for divorce. I had found that out a week after he had moved out. He didn't even have a backbone to face me and tell me that he was filing for a divorce because of a little argument that we had and he was insecure. I understood his anger and insecurities, but the divorce part was the one I was failing to understand. I would ask myself, how did we get here? How did we get into the divorce part? It was a heartbreaking moment for both of us. I never intended for things to end this way. All I wanted was to have an honest conversation about my desires and see if there was a way to compromise and maintain our relationship. But sometimes, no matter how much we try to communicate and find common ground, things just don't work out. It's important to remember that everyone has their own boundaries and limits. While exploring our options can be a healthy and natural part of life, it's crucial to approach these conversations with sensitivity and respect for our partner's feelings. I didn't think about his feelings. All that was in my head was exploring my desires. I really regret how I would get sometimes. I always end up saying the wrong things at the wrong time and in the wrong place. The separation between Taylor and I was heartbreaking. I was in denial and failing to come to terms that my husband had divorced me because of my stupid desires. I wish I had dealt with my desires in a different way, or if there was a way to approach this matter to my husband in a respectful and calm way. Our shared love and commitments had been flushed down the drain just because of a small argument. I was not okay for a couple of weeks. Ever since Taylor took all of his belongings and moved out, I haven't been myself. I pushed everyone away. I was in a very depressing state, and I didn't think I would actually survive the separation. Taylor and I had shared a lot, from our love to our own future goals and desires. Now I don't know how I will go to the children's home knowing that I might bump into Taylor. My heart has been bleeding since the breakup. I had thought a lot about my life, but somehow I managed to pull through, and I am grateful to God for that. Weeks passed, and I decided to just wake up, clean myself up, and go outside to get some fresh air. I had also decided to attend therapy sessions. As much as I had thought I had moved on from my marriage breakup, but I wasn't healed. I was not ready to move on. I would still beat myself up because of what happened to my marriage. You know, sometimes I would feel the urge to just pick up my phone and call Taylor, just to hear his voice and find out how he was doing. I was starting to act like a lunatic. That is why I decided to start therapy. Therapy really helped me in speaking out about my feelings and my desires. For the first time, I had talked to someone about what I was truly feeling without being judged. Though there was only one problem that even a therapist can't even solve. My heart was in so much pain, and even when I would think about Taylor and our relationship, I would find myself in tears every day to a point that I would get a headache. So I decided to just drink at least 2 or 3 glasses of wine before I sleep to numb the pain I was feeling inside. My mother had tried reaching out to me. They even tried to come by the house, but I didn't open up for them. I wanted to be alone. I was drowning in sorrows, and if I was not tired of having a pity party, I would have lost myself and my life. One day I attempted to call Taylor, but refrained myself from it. I was the one who drove him to the situation that we were in. I was the one who made him file for a divorce while our marriage was okay with no problems. But what did I do? I took my selfish problems and laid them on the table, knowing very well that they would have a bad outcome. I continued going to the children's home. At first, I had gone with the hope to not bump into Taylor, but unfortunately, it seemed like the universe was not on my side because he was there. We tried to not make things awkward, but it was really hard for me. I was hurting. I missed him. Heck, I still miss him even now. When I saw him for the first time after our divorce, I saw that I had lost a gem while I wanted to explore the stones. I lost the only person who loved me for me, not for what I was going to offer or put on the table. We had grown apart, and my desire for exploration had become a breaking point in our relationship. Looking back, I understand why my partner reacted the way he did. It's natural to feel hurt when someone you love expresses a desire to be with someone else. But it's also important to remember that we all have different needs and desires. So, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, my advice would be to approach the topic gently and be prepared for any reaction. It's okay to have desires and wants, but it's equally important to consider the impact they may have on your relationship. Remember, communication is key, and sometimes even the most difficult conversations can lead to personal growth and understanding. Perhaps if we had discussed our feelings earlier, we could have found a compromise or a way to address my curiosity without jeopardizing our marriage. But sometimes even the strongest relationships can't withstand the weight of unfulfilled desires. It's a painful lesson to learn, but it's also an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. As I reflect on this experience, I've come to realize that communication is key in any relationship. It's important to be open and honest about our desires and needs, even if they might be difficult for our partners to understand at first. And it's equally important for our partners to listen and try to empathize with our feelings. Looking back, I realized that communication played a significant role in the breakdown of our marriage. Instead of discussing our feelings openly and honestly, we let our emotions take over and push us further apart. I learned the importance of open communication and understanding in a relationship. It's essential to be able to express your desires and concerns without fear of judgment or anger. Exploring new experiences shouldn't have to mean the end of a relationship. It should be an opportunity for growth and understanding. Unfortunately, in my case, it led to the end of my marriage. But I believe that by sharing my story, others can learn from my mistakes and approach these conversations with empathy and compassion. So here I am now, starting a new chapter in my life. It's not easy, but I believe that sometimes we have to take risks and follow our hearts, even if it means facing the consequences. While my journey to explore new relationships may have led to the end of my marriage, I've also discovered a newfound sense of self. I have learned the importance of staying true to my own desires and not compromising my own happiness for the sake of others. So, if you find yourself in a similar situation, I encourage you to have open and honest conversations with your partner. Explore your desires together and seek understanding. And remember, sometimes the path to self-discovery may lead to unexpected outcomes, but it can also lead to personal growth and a stronger sense of self. I know that some, or maybe most of you, would judge me and blame me for what had happened to my marriage. I also blamed myself for too long, until I realized that I had done the right thing to communicate with my husband, or must I say my ex-husband, instead of going outside our marriage and committing adultery. At least I was honest with him about how I was feeling and what I wanted or desired, even though it led us to an unexpected separation. What are your thoughts? Do you think I was right or wrong for choosing to be open about my desires to my husband?